Hello, everybody. Welcome this afternoon to our IQ Pro overview webinar. We are so excited to have everybody here. We appreciate you calling in. Thank you. We know your time is extremely valuable. We love that you're here. We love that you're as excited about IQ Pro as we are. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Bo Freeman. I'm part of the marketing department. Today we have two awesome presenters in David and Jason. I'll give them a little bit of an introduction here after we take care of some housekeeping items before we jump right into the presentation. So first and foremost, I want to let everybody know this webinar is being recorded. So we will record this webinar shortly after it ends. We'll download it, upload it to YouTube, and then you can go and find that recording. So if you had a coworker that wasn't able to jump on, or you want to go back and reference some of the things we talk about, you'll be able to find that. Just go to YouTube, search Qualsys. It'll be one of the first videos uploaded on our channel there. The next thing we want to kind of take care of is the question section. So we have two rock stars in the background in Joel and Mark, two of our technical account managers. Awesome, great guys. They are in the background answering questions. So please throw your questions in there. There may be a point where Joel and Mark have too many questions and they're not going to be able to get to every single one before we wrap up the webinar. Don't worry, we'll do some follow-up. So we do keep a record of all the questions you guys ask, and then we'll do a follow-up to make sure we get you the answers to your questions. So please make sure that you are asking questions, right? This is a space to learn and a space to ask those questions. So to help you get familiar with where that question section is, we want you to find it right now, and we want you to type in and let us know where you're calling in from and what you're doing this weekend or something fun. Type in that question section, where you're at, who you are, and we'll call some of you out right here. So we had Michael from Ontario. He chimed in here a little bit earlier. It's good to see you, Michael. Thank you so much for being here. We've got Taylor from Dallas. Thanks for being here, Taylor. We've got Kathy. Kathy's calling in from Winnipeg. Awesome. I'm sure it's freezing cold up there. We got Stan from Montreal. Trevor from Medicine Hat, Alberta. We've got Jeremy calling in from Pennsylvania. Great to see you, Jeremy. Thanks for showing up. Oh man, you guys are really, holy cow, this thing is blowing up. Try and shout a couple more of you. We got Chris from Atlanta. Thanks for being here, Chris. We got Vic from Louisiana. Great to see you, Vic. Thanks for coming. We've got Nick Dawson from Santa Cruz. That's a great place to live. Santa Cruz is amazing. We got Michael from Indiana. Holy smokes, you guys are blowing this up. It's great to see everybody here. Thank you all so much for humoring us there in the question section. And my next kind of housekeeping item is get familiar with GoToWebinar. If this is your first time joining with us, play with it. You can make the screens bigger. You can make our faces smaller, get our ugly mugs out of there and pull up the PowerPoint bigger. You can kind of customize it however you need to do that. So get familiar with those functions. And also, we are going to be doing a giveaway here. So I know a lot of you are excited about that. So 5 lucky winners will receive an IQ Pro today. So you just have to attend the webinar. After the webinar is done, we'll download a report of everybody that was here and attended the full time. And we'll randomly select 5 winners. So by the end of the day today, if you're one of the winners, you'll receive an email from Will Hackett. He will let you know that you won, and he will grab some information from you to get you your prize. So crossing my fingers for all of you. And so as we kind of transition into this presentation, I want to let everybody know this is an overview webinar. So David and Jason are going to be giving an overview of the IQ Pro. We do have next week the technical webinar. So that's going to be, we'll have Joel and Mark Sterling on that. They'll be presenting and just doing a technical deep dive. So this, like I said, this will be kind of the overview. The technical webinar is next week. You're all already registered for that technical webinar. If you're registered for the webinar today, you'll be registered for that. So just show up same time next week. We'll jump right into that. So without further ado, let's talk about our presenters here. We have David and Jason, two awesome guys. So David is one of our sales representatives. David's an awesome, knowledgeable, great guy. And we have Jason, he's one of our technical account manager directors, and Jason's extremely knowledgeable, and you guys are in for a real treat. So these are our two presenters today, and David and Jason, I'll turn the time over to you guys.
Thanks, Bo. Jason, I'll start. Yeah, we're here today. I'm excited to talk about our new panel, the IQ Pro. Perfect commercial solution, perfect hybrid system. You'll see as we move along some of the great features that we have in this panel. Looking forward to the release of this panel. I know some of you have already installed the panel. I've worked with some of you already in the past few months with this panel. So we're looking for the the good release of this. So you want to move forward with that, Jason?
Yeah, real quick. I think we had a couple polls. Bo, do you want to run some polls now, or you want to do those at the end? Or?
Polls.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Oh my goodness.
Excited. We're so excited.
Like the biggest thing. I wrote myself a little list and I left the polls off. So I apologize. Yes, we've got some polls. We'll run through those really quick. Thank you, Jason. So first poll question here, is your company currently installing JCI products? So are you or the company you work for, are you guys installing those products? Awesome. Give you guys a couple seconds here. Just got everybody voted. Great. Awesome. Looks like most of you are. Looks like there's some newcomers. Thank you so much. If this is your first webinar with us, thank you. Thank you for being with us. So I will close that poll. This next poll here, we're asking how often in your installs do you need more than 4 partitions? Do you never need more than 4 partitions? Is it roughly 25 to 50% of the time, and so on and so forth? That's great. Got a lot of people answering quick. Thank you all so much. Great. We'll wrap that one up. Next poll question here is, do you have jobs that could benefit from the ability to remotely mount a PowerG transceiver, allowing for greater coverage? Are there times on those larger jobs that you could benefit from that?
Interesting. The majority of them. Very cool.
Yes.
All righty, just a couple more seconds to get your votes in. Perfect. Thank you so much. Rolling through here. We got a couple more. So this next question is, how often do you need more than 242 users? Is that never? Is that some of the time, most of the time? Let us know. All righty, we'll wrap that one up. Thank you, everybody. And then this is kind of our last poll question for right now. So when you go in and install a job, how important is that ease of installation? Is that something that's very important? Is it moderately important, or is it not important? All right, just a couple more seconds. Beautiful. All righty, that's the last poll question I have for right now. Thanks, Jason, for saving my bacon there, and we'll turn time over to you guys.
So real quick, Dave, before you get started, just quick agenda. Bo mentioned that today we planned an overview. We want to give you a kind of a high level, what is Pro, what our vision is for Pro, some of the limitations, what it can do, what it can't do, that good stuff. We want to do a quick live demo. One of the coolest things about Pro that we're going to get into is the ease of installation, how simple this hardwired system is to program. So we're going to do a quick demo of what the installer interface looks like. You guys will be excited to know and to see that it basically flows the same as an IQ4, so it's going to be very easy, very familiar. We want to cover a TSB briefly with you guys as well. So as you may or may not have known, we soft launched Pro late last year. There was a big old list of limitations, things that the Pro wasn't quite ready to do yet, things we were still working on the software, that kind of stuff. So we want to take you through the production software TSB that was just posted on our dealer site. It's a handful of pages long, chock full of good information. And then we'll wrap it up and do some questions with you guys. Now, this is an overview. Next week, we're doing the technical. So for all you techs on the call that want to get into the weeds and want to ask all your technical questions, next week is going to be all technical. So save your really in the weeds technical talk for next week. That will be recorded. So if you can't attend, it'll be on our YouTube. You can go back and watch it. But definitely, if you want to get into the weeds and you want to ask your technical questions, this time next week is when we're going to do that. So with that being said, Dave, I'll hand it off to you and we'll get started here.
Okay, you want to move on to the next slide?
Sure. So we got a little promo video, so we'll play that, and then Dave, I guess you can take it from there. So
good.
Cool.
Okay, so with this IQ Pro panel, what we've done is we've actually taken two of our best panels and combined them together. So now we have 2-in-1 panels. So we've taken the IQ Pro, the IQ 4 and the Neo panel and combined them and made what we call the IQ Pro panel. You also saw in that promo video, there was actually two different styles of cans. This can that you see here is our metal can. Everybody calls this the shark fin on top. That's where the antennas are. And then we have the plastic version can as well. So you're going to see as we move along here, there's a lot of choices to this system with metal can, plastic can, different radio frequencies and everything else built into it. You want to move along, Jason? All right. Everything you need is in this panel. I mean, 8 partitions. We now have 8 partitions, over 100 zones and more than 200 users. So real quick, this panel's available in both plastic and metal cans, all right? So a lot of the features in here, baseline features that match the IQ4. If you guys are using the IQ4, you know how easy it is to use the IQ4. If you're using the IQ4, this is going to be so much, you know, like the IQ4 to you. Up to 128 zones, both hardwired. We also have MX, which we'll talk about a little bit in our addressable, and join us next week because we're really going to hit hard on the addressable loops. And then, of course, the legacy frequencies and PowerG. 8 partitions. There's 1,000 users in this system here, so more than enough users for everybody. On board, we have PowerG that's built on board, as well as the LTE Wi-Fi, very similar to the IQ4 built on board, as well as Bluetooth. And you'll also see that there's an Ethernet port on this panel. So a lot of times I've done commercial jobs where I had the system and that IQ4, I couldn't get the Wi-Fi. I needed to make a hardwire connection, but I couldn't do that with the IQ4. Here I have the capability to plug it into the customer's network. So I can use an Ethernet port on this. Everybody's using alarm.com, very interactive with alarm.com, and then Z-Wave built into this as well. And just like on our IQ4, you've got the option to select your legacy frequency, 319, 345, or 433. So this makes it great for takeovers. If you're taking over an old Interlogix or Honeywell system, not a problem here, all right? Again, with the addressable loops, we'll probably cover a lot more of that next week. But we will show you some of the addressable devices that we have that are working on this system, and we can do up to 124 MX addressable devices. The install interface, we're going to call it for now, right, Jason? It's an interface.
That's right.
We'll kind of joke about that, but it's an installer interface, and Jason's going to do a great demo with this today, where you'll be able to see that you can program this panel right from your phone or from a tablet right on site. And then if you were on the webinar 2 weeks ago, I'm sure everybody, this is the long-awaited IQ remote Wi-Fi and PowerG. So we finally have our secondary tablet that you can connect with PowerG. Everybody's been asking for it, and it's now going to be released with this panel. So as well as the IQ hardwire to wireless PowerG module that we have that can be also hooked to this panel. One really cool part about this is, how many times has anybody gone out and you've got a system and you need to relocate it, you put in an IQ4, and you know, I'm in a big 100,000 square foot building, 200,000 square foot building, and I'd really like to locate my receiver someplace centrally. Well, with this IQ Pro, that allows you to take the host receiver and relocate it. So you could take a host 9 receiver or a Neo keypad with a PowerG receiver and centrally locate that in the building someplace. Once you do that, it will turn the receiver off in the panel. I think, Jason, you're going to cover a little bit about how that works in some slides further on. But that's going to be nice to be able to centrally locate the receiver from where you're putting the panel if you had to.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Right.
Dave, let's just pause here for 2 seconds, Dave.
Yeah.
Let's just reiterate what this is, right? Dave mentioned kind of 2 panels in one, right? Combining the best of both worlds, and that's exactly what we've done here. So we've taken a Neo, we've taken an IQ4, and we've mashed them together, right? The cool thing about the Neo is, for you guys that know it or are familiar with it, is it has a huge robust of a very robust portfolio of devices. You can take over any hardwired device you want. There's a list of supported modules this long. You can remotely mount your transceivers. You can have power supplies, zone expanders, PGM expanders. I mean, there's not really a job you can't do with a Neo, just the flexibility that you have with the Neo. Now that said, the Neo is using an architecture that has been around for a very long time. It's not super user friendly. A little bit harder to train on, right? We could argue that it's just a titch outdated from a software architecture standpoint. If you look at the IQ4, very modernized, very user friendly, very chock full of features and benefits to the end user, all that good stuff. But it is an all-in-one touchscreen. So there's a lot that we can't do with that panel, right? So we kind of take in the best of both worlds, the best of the wireless world, the best of the hardwired world. We mash them together, as Dave just covered. There should be no job that you can't do with the IQ Pro for the most part. There's just so much flexibility here with all of the features, all the integrations, all the built-in modules, all the built-in communicators that come with the IQ4, combined with the portfolio of devices that Neo supports. Man, you can just do a whole lot with this. It's just a very, very, very cool panel. So I just wanted to reiterate that this is just really the best of both worlds, right? We kind of combine the hardwired and wireless world to make a really cool panel. So I just wanted to reiterate on that. Dave, go ahead, continue doing what you're doing.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, you got the best of both worlds with this. Everybody who loved the Neo now can still use all those parts from the Neo as well as the IQ4. So it's a perfect combination. And communication built in, again, dual path, just like we have in the IQ4, dual path communication. So when you take apart this panel, if you look at this panel, if we took apart the IQ4, it's all about the Qualcomm Snapdragon, our system on a module. Everything is built on board here. So we have our LTE, we have our Wi-Fi, we have our Bluetooth, an access point to connect to, and then of course our Android 9 forward compatibility on this board. And you'll see that just everything is right there. It also just has great support for us from Snapdragon and Qualcomm. This panel, just like the IQ4, will do simultaneous dual path communication, so over Wi-Fi and cell communication at the same time. And of course, the IQ Pro has an Ethernet port, so it can do LTE and Ethernet. So we're transmitting that signal at the same time. When we look at this board, okay, just like on the IQ4, we have daughter cards built in. You're going to see your PowerG, you're going to see your legacy frequencies. So here's where you can add the 319 or 345 or 433. When you're purchasing this panel, you could say, hey, I need that extra. I've got to take over this panel. I need 319. We can add that. And of course, Z-Wave 800 built in. The center spot that you see in there says core bus. So that's what's actually connecting us to the core bus of the Neo part of this panel. So here's where our panel connects to the Neo. The two panels connect together and work great. And then lastly, we got that Ethernet card that I keep talking about that I really like about this panel. So everything built on board as far as this panel goes on the Qualcomm Snapdragon system, all in a module.
Yeah, Dave, anyone that's familiar with IQ4 is familiar with this slide, right? We've showed this slide before, yep. A very similar slide on our IQ4 trainings. And what you'll notice is the limits are very similar as well. So from an RF security standpoint, we still have a 128 zone limit. As you saw in one of the earlier slides that Dave mentioned, that's mix and match. So that's wireless, that's hardwired, that's MX, right? You can kind of mix and match, combine those, you get up to 128 total zones, 137 Z-Wave zones. And then of course we've got the built-in Ethernet card here as well. But from a zone limitation standpoint, it's going to be identical to an IQ4 for the most part, right?
Yep. All right, so when we look at this panel, there's a lot of varieties to this panel. Just like you did on the IQ4, you're going to order this panel. PowerG only, PowerG with 319, 433, or 345. Also, Verizon, AT&T tell us. And again, look at that picture there. Metal can. If you need a metal can, we got it in a metal can version. If plastic is fine, plastic is good. I've seen a lot of those plastic cans that we've done some installations on out there, and they work great. And here's a great list of the part numbers. So hey, if I need a panel with a 319 and PowerG built in, I'm ordering an IQP 001M. That would be my metal can. P would be for plastic, as you can see right down the line. Then we've got Verizon, AT&T, and TELUS. So a lot of different varieties of this panel for you guys to choose from.
Yeah, so you'll notice, I'll interject here again, Dave. You'll notice that you can't order a Pro without PowerG, right? That's just, as you can see, every Pro, no matter the part number, is going to have PowerG in it. Now, the next line over would be, do you want a legacy RF, right? So PowerG standard. You can order a Pro with just PowerG, no legacy RF. That'll save you a few bucks. So that's a cool option. But as Dave mentioned, everything is PowerG. You want 319, 345, 435, and then you want it metal plastic, right? The TSB that we're going to talk about here at the end of the presentation, which you guys can go get access to on our dealer portal today, has all this information in it. So a lot of part numbers here, a lot of SKUs to manage, right? We'll share some resources on where you can go to find this again, so that if you order here in the near future, you'll know which part number goes to what, right? But a lot of good information here, a lot of different SKUs for sure.
Absolutely. And with that, PowerG, like Jason said, PowerG is in every single version of that panel. PowerG is our long range frequency. Part of the reason I'm here is because of PowerG. I loved PowerG, and I knew there was a great product coming over to this to work with. So let's talk a little bit about PowerG, and maybe if you're not familiar with how it works. I think we have a video we can show.
Yeah, we got a video.
Demo in the PowerG.
Beach cooler open.
Sorry for the latency, but
yeah, sorry.
Were you part of that video?
Yeah, I was there for that. So I was gonna say, let me speak to this real quick. So very cool video. I think most people on this call probably are familiar with PowerG. We love PowerG. The range is awesome. The reliability is awesome, right? We just love it. This was a kind of a demo we were running for some meetings we had out in Santa Cruz. Sorry. As you can see in that video, of course, there's no real world application, no real world need for installing security on a cooler, but we were doing it for demo purposes. And we were having PowerG sensors communicate back to the panel over 4,000 feet away, which is awesome. Now that's open air, of course, but it's a good baseline to use for comparison against other sensors. 4,000 feet open air is really incredible. And as you'll see here in a couple slides, we're going to talk about the ability to remotely mount the PowerG transceiver for Pro away from the panel, which helps with range, which helps with larger installations, that kind of stuff. So, I think everybody here loves and knows PowerG for the most part, but we gotta put a few slides in here talking about it as always. So continue on, Dave. Sorry about that.
No, absolutely. And I mean, this is another great slide showing all the extra features that PowerG has to offer. We all know about the ultra long range. I mean, you can see the example there in pink of just what a standard sensor might give you compared to a PowerG sensor, basically covering almost 4 times the distance of any other standard legacy frequency out there. And then the encryption, 128-bit encryption. But what I really love about this is the frequency hopping, okay? Because I always tell people, and a good example is I'm using 319. So just imagine I'm driving down a single lane road and something comes out in front of me. I'm either going to hit it or go off that road. So I'm going to go into an alarm or I'm going to go into supervision. Whereas with PowerG, I've got a multi-lane highway to drive down. So I can avoid that traffic at all times and hop back and forth from there without, having those false alarms or supervisions. So it's just much better driving down a multi-lane highway than a single lane road with all that traffic, giving us a lot more room to manipulate around all those interference problems that we've had in the past. So, that's one of the things I do. The other thing I really like is the adaptive power management, because, we've learned to sensor in at the panel. We're only a few feet away from the panel. we don't need to scream. PowerG 900 megahertz frequency is loud. It's going to scream to get out that distance. But if I'm only 50 feet away from the panel, I don't need to use my full power to get to that receiver. So I can reduce the amount of power I'm using to push out that frequency, which is going to do one thing. It's going to definitely help save on the battery. Okay. And then of course, it is UL. We are UL listed for commercial Berg. And just like anything else, we support 8 repeaters. I always tell people, just remember, a repeater doesn't repeat a repeater, but just imagine the distance we get on PowerG to begin with, and now adding another repeater, just doubling that distance is incredible. So, this is a great slide to show and talk about all the advantages that we have with PowerG today.
Awesome. Let's talk secondary keypads. I'm going to show you guys here in a few minutes a document that lists every secondary keypad that the Pro is compatible with. We are compatible with a decent large number of hardwired keypads. We've got a list of wireless keypads, PowerG wireless keypads that are compatible. And then of course, the IQ remote is compatible as well, right? So we're going to go over all the keypads that are compatible, but we did want to kind of touch on this, right, which is the IQ Remote PowerG. This has been a long time in the works. Everybody's very excited about this product. We are so close to releasing this thing. We had to throw it in here because, of course, it's compatible with Pro, right? Now, we did a technical workshop on the IQ Remote PowerG, I think 2 weeks ago. So if you want to learn more about this, you want to, kind of get into the weeds a little bit about this product and what it's all about, go to our YouTube channel. There's a workshop on our YouTube channel right now about IQ Remote PowerG. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but we did want to touch on it because this is an exciting new product that is just a few weeks away from being fully launched. This is compatible with Pro when it releases. You can pair up to 5 of these to the system at a time, and you can kind of match that with some hardwired keypads. So you can actually get more than 5 secondary keypads if needed. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But we had to call it the IQ Remote PowerG. We love this thing. Again, best of both worlds. We joke that the PowerG wireless keypad and the IQ Remote got together and had a baby. This is the baby of those 2 keypads. And man, we're right around the corner from releasing this thing. This thing is reliant, is dependent on our next IQ Panel 4 software, 4.3.0. That releases here any day now, and when that does, we'll release the IQ Remote PowerG. So this will get formally announced here probably in the next couple of weeks. We will be showing this at ISC, so if you're going to ISC, come swing by the booth. We'll have some of these up and running. You can take a look at them. But very excited about this remote, and it is obviously a good option for IQ Pro as well. Now, we mentioned that one of the cool things about this keypad, or about the Pro, is that it supports a long list of modules that were supported on the Neo. So let's run through this real quick. These are all the core bus modules that are supported on IQ Pro. So we've got Neo keypads. I'm going to show you some slides on that kind of go over what keypads are supported. We're happy to announce that with this production version of software, we now support the HS2T CHP Neo touchscreen keypad as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that. This does need a firmware upgrade. The TSP that I'm going to show you actually has a link to download that upgrade. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But excited to bring the Neo touchscreen into the fold as well for Pro. We support the PowerG host. Of course, this gives you the ability to remotely mount the PowerG host somewhere in the building, the rafters, right, to more centrally locate the transceiver and give you better coverage. Zone expanders, we've got PGM expanders on here, high current output module, the HSM2204, the HSM2300 as well, and then of course the MX addressable loop module, the HSM3105. Now, there's a couple asterisks here that are worth calling out. Not from a not supported standpoint, we do not support the Neo two-way voice module. That was worth calling out. We've had a few questions about that. And we don't support any of the core bus modules that are on firmware 1.0. So they got to be newer than 1.0. And then this is just a call out regarding the upgrade for the HS2T CHCP. And then I'm going to talk about this here on my next slide. So as you can see, a whole bunch of different modules for the install. You need additional power. You need the zone, add some zone expanders. You need a PGM expander. right? We can really grow this system using these different modules here. And again, we're going to get a little bit more technical on the, much more technical on the call next week. We'll talk a little bit more about wiring the core buses, the distances of wire, kind of all that good stuff. So we will get into the weeds on these modules here next week. Now, we mentioned that I think we mentioned that the IQ Pro has the ability to auto switch the host that it's using, the PowerG host, the transceiver that's being used, right? Now out of box, it's built into the Pro, it's on the board, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you add either a host RF keypad or an actual remote host, what will happen is you'll be prompted to actually reboot the Pro. When the Pro reboots and wakes back up, it will have auto switched to that host that was added, whether it be an RF keypad or an actual host. Now, something that we have to call out here, this is very important to note, the brand new IQ Remote PowerG and the PowerG wired to wireless modules are not supported on these hosts. They are only supported on the internal host. So if you add an RF keypad or a remote host, you are unable to pair an IQ Remote PowerG or a PowerG wired to wireless translator to the Pro. So keep that in mind. Now, we are coming out with a new version of the host and an updated version of the RF keypads that will allow the translator and the IQ Remote to connect to the Pro, but that's going to come out a little bit later this year. So for now, just keep in mind, if you run out and do an install tomorrow and you want to remotely mount a host for the Pro, that's okay. That's all good and dandy. It's supported today. Just know that you can't use the IQ Remote PowerG or the PowerG wired to wireless module, okay, the translator. So that's something to put in your notes for now. And then again, I mentioned that we're going to update these here later on in the year so that those two can be compatible. But for now, keep in mind that those are not compatible with the remote host, okay? Now, I mentioned that the Pro does support the PowerG wired to wireless translator. This is awesome for bigger installs where maybe you don't want to home run those wires all the way back to the Pro. You could run them all to a PowerG translator and let the translator communicate wirelessly back to the Pro. This is really cool ability to have right in your back pocket in case you're doing multiple buildings, maybe different floors, maybe you don't want to home run everything back to the Pro, right? There's a bunch of reasons where this could come into play, but this gives you guys the abilities to remotely mount translators and have all those devices, those zones communicate wirelessly back to the Pro. I think most of you are familiar with this. This has been out for quite a while right now. People love this translator. It works really well. As you know, this translator supports a range of hardwired keypads as well, and all the modules that we just talked about. So zone expanders, PGM expanders, power supplies, all that stuff is compatible on the translator. I think with the exception of the MX module, this translator does not support addressable loop. So that would have to be ran or wired directly to the Pro, but every other module is supported on here. So you've got some pretty cool flexibility when it comes to how you wire up your job, right? Let's talk about addressable loops. This is one of the big ticket items for Pro that we're very excited about. The Pro does support a loop of addressable devices. One of the cool things about the MX technology is that it's a digital communications protocol that actually tends to be a little bit more reliable and resilient communication compared to some of the other loops out there. One of the cool things about the MX technology is that it operates on 40 volt DC power, whereas some of the other protocols use 24 volt DC. That gives us higher voltage, right, which allows us to run longer runs, longer loops, right, for bigger buildings, that kind of thing. So that's something that is cool about the MX technology. We won't get too into the weeds on this call. We're going to talk a lot about this in the next call. There's a couple different ways to wire this. It can be either a loop or you could do a couple spurs. And of course, we support up to 124 devices here. So we will spend more time on this. But having the ability to run a loop of addressable devices for big installs, as you guys are familiar with, is a time saver, right? Or if you're ever out taking over loops, right, you can use some of that existing wiring, save yourself a whole bunch of time and labor. So having the ability to do an addressable loop is really, really awesome. Now, this is a list of all the addressable devices that we support. Of course, if you're going this route, you've got to have the HSM 3105. This is the addressable interface module. But we have 10 different MX devices that you can kind of choose from. So we have a motion detector, a PRR, a PET immune PIR, silly mount PIR, glass break, a door window contact, line isolator module, and then we have some fire devices as well. So smoke and heat, smoke only, heat only, and then you've got your fire base on there. So this is what is compatible with Pro today. Yeah, did somebody have a question or a comment, Dave?
Yeah. No, Jason, yeah, and we also have coming out, I mean, it's not out yet, but we will have an auxiliary input module for this as well. So, you know, your overhead door contacts or other normally open, normally closed contacts that you want to add to it, that is coming out hopefully soon.
Yeah, that'll come out a little bit later this year, we think, probably midsummer-ish timeframe. We'll have that universal input module as well. So you can wire devices to that if needed. Now you'll notice here on the addressable interface module, this is going to connect directly to the core bus interface on the Pro, but it provides connectivity for up to 2 MX addressable buses. So you can see the 2 buses there, one on the left, one on the right. These can be configured to operate independently. So you can have 2 separate loops, or you can do one big single loop. So you can have 2 separate spurs, I think is the proper wording, or you can do one big loop on this. So yeah, lot to get into here. There's a lot of information, a lot of questions I know that we get around the MX loops. If you have them, feel free to chat them in. In fact, one of the guys that's answering the questions is very proficient with the MX loop. So if you have questions, chat those in. But again, just to reiterate, we are going to deep dive into this on next week's call as well. Anything to add here, Dave? But MX?
No, just great. Just great to go in and take over a single line loop into the building. Save a lot of time, a lot of wire. Not having a home run every single thing, every single zone back. Being able to put multiple devices on one line. It's a great labor saving way to go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Let's talk about how you install Pro, right? Let's talk about the installer interface. If my computer will switch here. So anyone can be a pro, right? This is one of the biggest, for me, one of my favorite things about the Pro is the ease of programming, right? And we kind of labeled this session, anyone can be a pro. And I think that's intentional for this reason. The fact that this is a very easy panel to program, right? If most dealers that we work with, and a lot of you guys probably run this way as well, your commercial techs and your residential techs are 2 different people, right? You got your commercial guys, you got your residential guys. They don't really cross over. There's no way you're sending a resi guy out to service a commercial panel for the most part, right? Of course, there's exceptions to that. Some of you guys have really good techs, but a lot of companies kind of separate the 2. And they have to do that because the Qualsys panel that you're installing on most of your jobs, and whether it's a DMP or a Honeywell or a Neo, they're just 2 different worlds, or just 2 different systems. There's a much harsher learning curve with hardwired systems, right? I can train a guy to install an IQ panel in the morning. I probably couldn't train a guy to install a Neo in the morning, right? It's just more complicated. It's older, it's an older UI, it's an older product. It's just different. It's a little harder, right? One of the cool things about the Pro is, and you're going to see this here in just a minute, is that it is as easy as a IQ4 to program, right? I'm going to pull this up and we're going to do a live demo here for you, but you guys will see that this installer interface that we're using to program Pro has the same flow as an IQ4. So once you get in and you start to configure the installer interface here for Pro, you'll see how it flows just like IQ4. It's very familiar. All the settings are in the same buckets, they're in the same place, they're in the same layout. So you really could put a proficient IQ4 tech on an IQ Pro with very little training. This is going to help the learning curve. This is going to help training new technicians. This is going to allow you to send a resi guy to go service a commercial system, right? So the fact that this is the first hardwired system that you could probably train a guy on in the morning is huge, right? And that's probably one of my favorite parts about the Pro. So you'll see here that we have this installer interface. This can be downloaded on iOS or Android. It can be done on an iPad or a tablet if you want. But this is where we're going to do all of our programming from, okay? We're going to do a live demo here in just a minute, but I want to talk about the apps, where to go, where to get them, and what you need to do to get the app if you go and order a Pro tomorrow, okay? There's a little bit of nuance here, so bear with me. If you currently have a Pro, so we mentioned that we soft launched IQ Pro late last year as we were working on some of the software and working to get it production ready. If you have one of those IQ Pros, you're going to need to update your Pro to the current production version of software using the old app I'll call it, the 4.2.0 app. You can download those apps by scanning these QRs today. These QR codes right now if you want. I'm also going to pull up a TSP that has this information in it so you guys can get access to this after the call's over. But what you want to do is if you have a Pro today, you're going to want to update to production software, and I'll show you how to do that here in just a minute, using the old app, right? Once you have updated your Pro to the full launch version of software, you're going to want to download the new final version of the installer interface from the App Store, right? And that's what you're going to use on the Pro going forward. If you don't have a Pro, let's say that you're ordering one today, right? You want to go and order one, it's going to show up in a week or two, whatever, right? If you get your hands on a Pro for the first time here going forward, it will come with that new software version already loaded. And you can just go straight to downloading the new version of the installer interface from the App Store. And those QR codes can be scanned. These QR codes will link you to that new version of the app right here. So there's a little bit of nuance. If you've never touched a Pro, don't worry about the old app, right? The old installer interface. You're just going to download the new installer interface. You'll have instructions in the box, instructions online that show you how to do that. I'm also going to share a document with you guys that will give you access to this, for after the call. If you have a Pro today in your possession, you're going to need to update it with the old app, the old installer interface, and then switch to the new installer interface once it updates. So I hope that makes sense. Again, we're going to pull up the TSP here and go through it again together. But the pre-launch, the soft launch version just uses a different app. Now that the app is fully ready to go, the installer interface is production ready. It's just a new version that you have to download in the App Store. So that's a little bit confusing, but I'm going to again pull up a document that you guys can have that will take you through this as well. So with that being said, once we get the app downloaded on our phone, I'm going to show you right now just how easy it is to connect this installer interface to the Pro, and then we're going to give you a quick demo of what the app looks like, what the installer interface looks like. So I'm going to pull up my phone here. I think you guys should be able to see that. Dave, can you see my phone by chance?
I see your phone for now, yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, ignore all my text messages and missed phone calls and stuff here. But as you'll see here, I have here on the bottom row on the left, I have my old app, right, so that I can update my old Pros. And then I've got my new app for the production ready version of Pro. So I've got my Pro already updated. So I'm going to open up the installer interface app. As you can see, it pulls up a camera on my phone. You can see me sitting here at my desk. I've actually got a Pro sitting here to the left of me. There's a QR code up here on the Pro, right? This might be a little bit hard to see, but you'll get the idea. There's a QR code here on the Pro. I'm actually just going to scan that QR code with my phone. It's going to pull up all the information. So you can see here on my phone, I've got the serial number, the IMEI, we're ready to go. So I'm going to hit the continue button there at the bottom. Now it's going to ask me to hit the pairing button on the Pro. I don't have my camera set up to show you this, but you can kind of see in the app, it points to where that pairing button is. We're just going to hit it for 1 second. Once I hit that button, that pair button, it's going to take a few seconds, but you'll notice that it says press the next button when you see the LED blinks blue. So now that my LED is blinking blue, I'm going to hit next. It's going to ask me to join the Pro's access point. That's how we're connecting to the Pros. We're actually connecting locally to the IQ panels, to the IQ Pro's access point. Okay. So it's going to connect me to that access point, and once it does, it will connect me to the panel. We can get programming. Okay. Now, one of the cool things about this app is that we initially connect to the Pro using the access point on the Pro. Once that is done, you'll be prompted and given the option to connect to the Pro via Wi-Fi. Now, this is really cool because if you're connected to the Pro via Wi-Fi, there's no really distance limitation on it, right? As long as the panel on my phone stay connected to Wi-Fi, I can walk around the building and program anywhere in the building. As long as my phone is connected to Wi-Fi and it's in front of me, I can continue to program on Wi-Fi from anywhere in the building. I could be at the other side of a 1,000 square foot warehouse, and as long as I still got Wi-Fi, I can continue to program. So that just allows you to carry your phone or your iPad around with you and do your programming kind of on the fly, which I really like. So you'll notice here, now that we got connected to the Pro, it's actually prompting me to connect to Wi-Fi, right? I can say no and just stay connected locally over the access point, or I can say yes and run it over Wi-Fi, right? But this is kind of what the installer interface looks like. So I'm going to run you through this briefly because we're going to spend a ton of time on this next week. I'm going to start just on the bottom left, right? We're going to go through each of these icons here on the bottom left of the app, okay? So from the far left, this is my events menu. This is going to be a complete history of the Pro, right? So this is going to tell me when devices were added, when they were deleted, when AC power was added, you know, when there was a reboot, when there was a software. This is a complete basically event buffer of everything that's going on in the Pro, okay? The next icon over, the second one on the bottom from the left, is my configuration. Now this is where it gets exciting for me. You guys will notice, although it's an app form, this layout is the exact same as an IQ4, right? So I know from here, about is going to give me, you know, all of my about information, right? I know that if I click into user management, I can add my codes. I know that if I click into installation, I get a completely different menu, right? And this is the exact same flow as the menu on IQ4. Starts with devices, installer settings, system logs, sirens, alarms, security and arming, right? So from left to right, this is the exact same layout as you'll see on an IQ4. If I click into devices, same thing. This is where all my devices, all my device pairing happens from. Security sensors, Wi-Fi devices, ZOE devices. I can program my PGM outputs from here. Okay, so you'll notice from this configuration screen that this is the same menus and the same layout as an IQ4. So very familiar, very easy, right? Not a whole lot new here to learn. The middle icon there on the bottom is my dashboard. This gives me kind of a high level overview of what's going on with my system, right? I can drop this blue menu down. I can see what software version I'm on. Current version's 4.2.1N, that's the production version of software. I can see my batteries charging, it's at 100%. I can see what Wi-Fi network I'm connected to. That's actually the Wi-Fi 6, very cool. Cellular data is strong, and I've got AC power connected, right? Now below that, under devices info, I can kind of get an idea of what's paired to my system. So under security, you can see I have a total of 3 devices connected to the core bus, but a total of 18 zones that are connected to the core bus. I can actually click on that and actually see what is paired to the IQ Pro currently. And I can configure and edit and change any of this from this menu as well, okay? And I can do the same thing for Wi-Fi. If I had any Wi-Fi devices paired or any ZOE devices paired, right? I can toggle these menus here at the bottom. Now the next icon over, the second one from the right, is my system test menu. And you'll notice that this system test menu is identical and is laid out the same as IQ Panel 4. So I can come in here and I can run a cell test, right? I can come in here and I can run a dual path test. I can do a daughter card test, just like you can on IQ Panel 4. Make sure my daughter cards are installed, that they're functioning, that they're working, right? That everything checks out. So same testing menus and in the same layout as you get on IQ Panel 4. So again, you kind of start to see how easy this is. If you know IQ Panel 4, you can see how easy it would be to switch to an IQ Pro and kind of continue on with very little training. Now the last icon to the right is the application icon. This just gives me some information about the app that we're using, you know, the language that we're using, that kind of stuff. So that's my kind of 5-minute run through the app. Again, we're going to spend much more time on it next week. We're actually going to take you into, you know, in a little bit further into some of these menus, program some devices for you, let you see how that looks, let you see how that works. But hopefully you're as excited about this as I am. Just the fact that, again, you could probably put a Resi guy that knows IQ4 today on an IQ Pro with very little training, right? Because the programming is the same as IQ Panel 4. So I love that about this. This is the first hardwired system that I feel like I could go out and do, you know, the same day of my training, right? Without multiple days or multiple weeks of training. It's just it just doesn't get any easier than this. So that is the app. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of what this looks like. Again, we're going to spend much more time on it next week. We're running out of time here, but the last thing that I wanted to do before we open it up to some questions was to take you through the TSP for the final launch version of software for IQ Pro. So if you're not familiar, all of these TSPs can be found from our website. So if you don't have access to dealers.qualsys.com, I'd recommend that you do it. If you log into this website, click on support, click on technical service bulletins up here at the top, it will take you to this page. This is every TSB we've ever posted, software updates, you know, any callouts for any issues, that kind of stuff, right? This is every TSB on here that you could find. What I'm looking for is the IQ Pro one, right? So the last TSB we put in here, top left corner, is the IQ Pro 4.2.1 update, right? And if I click into that, it will pull up all of the information here for IQ Pro. Now, the reason I wanted to call this out is because we have made incredible strides in IQ Pro since we soft launched it late last year. There's been a huge amount of features and settings that were added in this software version. And then it goes into talk about the apps. We'll cover that. And it talks about all the compatible part numbers. So I just wanted to share this with you guys, because when we hang up with you here in 10 minutes and you have questions about part numbers or where do I go to get the app or blah, 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 you know, any of that stuff, it's all going to be on this TSP, okay? So there's an overview, it gives you some installation instructions, some best practices, all that good stuff. But then it kind of talks through new features, new enhancements. We're not going to go through these line item by line item because there's a lot of information in here, but you can see everything that was added to the Pro with this latest version of software. One of the most important things on here that I wanted to call out was that we added support for the Neo touchscreen, the HS2 TCHP. As I mentioned a few slides ago, this does require a firmware update via SD card, and that firmware update can be downloaded from this link directly here on the TSP, okay? So if you're interested in using the Neo touchscreen, great, this is where you come to get that firmware update for that device. There's a whole lot of other stuff on here. Control 4 was added, you know, common zones were added, PowerG photoelectric beams were added, right? A lot of cool stuff. We also go through and talk about the enhancements that were made to the installer interface, right? The application that we're using to program the IQ Pro, a lot of good stuff added there. We talk about some of the limitations. For those of you that had Pros over these last few months, you know that there was a whole bunch of limitations like Z-Wave and stuff like that, right? Some of these Pros, you know, still had a lot of features that we're working on. Here's some of those limitations that were corrected or fixed or updated. You can see here that we removed support for the MX945, that's the universal input module. It will be replaced with a new version later this year, the MX975i, okay? Then it takes you through the apps. So it kind of lays it out maybe in a clearer way than I presented it to you, but if you have a Pro, you got to update it with the old app, the 4.20 app, right? Here's where you can go to download that old version of app. If you are getting a Pro for the first time, or if you just updated your Pro, here's the newest version of app, the version 1.1. That's the one that you want. Here's the QR code. You can go and download that directly from this TSP as well. And then last but not least, we get a lot of questions on this. I've been getting these questions almost daily. What modules, what keypads are supported, right? Here's a list of every keypad that's supported, hardwired and wireless, right? And some limitations. So we can do up to 16 hardwired keypads, a total of 5 wireless keypads, right? Here's all the part numbers and every keypad that's supported on IQ Pro. If we continue to scroll, what modules are supported on IQ Pro? Well, here they are. Here's your zone expander, your PGM, your power supplies, your MX modules, all that good stuff, right? Here's that note, that very important note that I mentioned earlier, that the PowerG translator and the IQ remote will not work with remote host. So RF keypads or the HSM2 host, they have to be paired to the onboard host on the Pro. So keep that in mind. That's a temporary limitation. And then if we continue to scroll, we've got some more information. So I wanted to spend 2 minutes on this because I think it's important. We have been asked a lot about this. Yes, the IQ Pro supports cellular antenna extensions. So if you want to mount the Pro in an IT closet or a server room or somewhere and you're not getting the signal strength that you need, we do have some antennas that can be ordered to extend those antennas. You can run those up into the attic or whatever you need. Keep in mind that you need 2 antennas per panel, and the antenna extensions are only compatible on metal IQ Pros. These will not work with any plastic IQ Pro. So basically, if you have a plastic IQ Pro, you cannot extend the antennas. If you have a metal cabinet, you can, and you need 2 antennas per panel. Here are those part numbers. And then last but not least, you've got your MX addressable devices, what those part numbers are. And then last but not least, you've got all of your IQ Pro part numbers. So metal can, plastic can, Verizon, AT&T, TELUS, all that good stuff. And then you got some installation instructions down here as well. So I wanted to spend a few minutes going over that because there's just a lot of good information on here. Again, this can be found on our dealer portal. I'd recommend you go and download it, save it, so that you have access to all these part numbers and limitations and that good stuff. But that is the TSP. And I just wanted to run through that with you again because I think there's really good information on there. So with that being said, let us wrap up with this. And then we'll answer a few questions here. We'll hand it back over to you, Bo. So real quick, you can kind of see, this is kind of a high level view of what the vision is for our panels, for us kind of re-entering the commercial market, if you will. We want one platform. We really like this one platform vision because what this does is allows you to go either up market into a commercial panel, down market into a resi panel, and it's one app, it's one user interface, it's one installation application. It's familiar across the board. You could program an IQ4 hub in an 800 square foot apartment one day and program an IQ Pro in a 50,000 square foot warehouse the next day. They're going to program the same. They're going to use this, for the most part, same compatible devices. Just one panel across the board, one platform, easy to use, easy to scale. And then as you can see here, we have visions, bigger visions for a commercial panel. So we're talking about the IQ Pro today. We're already working on the IQ Pro Plus. This levels everything up, more users, more partitions, more zones, more certifications, banking level certifications, that kind of thing. And then eventually we want to grow this into a commercial fire panel as well. So that's where we're headed. We're very excited to kick it off and start with IQ Pro. Hopefully this was informative. Please join next week if you want to get more technical. With that being said, I'll hand it off to Bo here.
David and Jason, excellent. Thank you guys so much. Joel, do we have a question or two that you would see valuable to kind of present in front of the whole group that we could discuss? Are there any questions like that?
Well, it's funny. I had some stashed aside, but Jason literally answered every one of them. I had the commercial fire question stashed because that was asked quite a bit. I had the integration with Control 4 stashed. I had the antenna question stashed aside. Jason answered every single one of them, so I can't see anything else that hasn't been touched on already.
Great, awesome. Well, that's phenomenal to hear. And like we said, if there are some questions in the background that we weren't able to get to, we will do some follow up on those questions. We did want to run one last poll question. So this is just to kind of gauge how you're feeling after this presentation. So it's kind of an I statement. Now that you've learned more about the IQ Pro, are you ready to buy? Do you need somebody on the sales team to reach out to give you some more information? Do you need more technical training, which is coming next week? We'll have that technical webinar. That's a component of that. And if there's something else you need, please throw it in the chat and let us know what it is you need surrounding the IQ Pro so that we can work to get you guys everything you need. So just going to give everybody, another maybe 15, 20 seconds here to kind of get in their answers. And yeah, we'll reiterate it again. Same time next week. We're going to have a phenomenal technical overview of the IQ Pro. You're not going to want to miss it. You're already registered for that if you showed up here today. So just same process you followed today to jump in, and we'll close this poll. And then just one last time, wanted to reiterate, we will be giving away 5 IQ Pro units. So watch for an email from Will Hackett to see if you're one of those winners. I'm hoping it was you guys. And Dave and Jason, thank you so much for your time. Joel, Mark, thank you for answering those questions in the background. And please join us next week. You're not going to want to miss that training. So Jason, Dave, any final thoughts?
No, I just interestingly, there's 43% on the poll that said they wanted more technical training. Guess what? You don't have to wait for next week, and maybe next week's not enough. Reach out to your TAM. We've got TAM spread out all across North America. Reach out to your TAM. If you want more personalized, whether it's in-person or virtual, we can run. We're happy to do as many trainings as you all need, right? It doesn't have to be limited to these organized webinars. If you want more training on IQ Pro, you're ready to go today, reach out to your TAM. We'll get you set up, and we can host a training for you. So
beautiful, great. With that, we will wrap it up, and we will see everybody next week. Thank you so much. Have a great day.